During dinner at a restaurant, my mother-in-law made a deeply hurtful remark, suggesting that I didn't belong simply because I wasn't related by blood. Her words stung, making me feel undervalued, and I had the sudden urge to leave. As I rose to go, she demanded that I pay for the meal since I was leaving early. Feeling mistreated, I refused to pay for everyone else's dinner. My name is Samantha, and I work in an office. My husband, Peter, and I have a generally happy marriage. But there's one significant issue: his mother. She constantly criticizes me and interferes in our lives. Although I've shared my concerns with Peter, he doesn't see it as a problem, believing her actions are just signs of affection. Over time, her intrusions worsened. She had a key to our home, given to her by Peter, and would let herself in uninvited, critiquing everything from my housekeeping to spreading unfounded rumors about me to our neighbors. I begged Peter to consider moving, but he was too preoccupied with work to address the situation. Then came a turning point. Peter received a significant promotion and a raise after completing a major project. I saw this as a chance for a fresh start and suggested we think about starting a family now that we were financially stable. I hoped this would make him realize the negative impact his mother was having on our lives and see the need for change. However, Peter had a different perspective. He believed that if we were going to start a family, we should live in a more child-friendly town with good daycare options and parks, unlike our current neighborhood. After some discussion, Peter finally agreed to move, and I was thrilled. But my joy was short-lived. The very next day, my mother-in-law showed up unannounced, as usual. I braced myself for her typical criticisms, but she was surprisingly pleasant. She came to celebrate Peter's recent success and invited us to dinner at a fancy restaurant known for its exceptional food and service. "It's posh, and everyone raves about it," she said, inviting me to join her. "That sounds nice," I replied, keeping my tone polite despite my lingering frustration with her. "Clear your schedule. I really want you to come," she insisted, ignoring my attempts to decline. "Don't say no. We want you there," she added firmly, leaving me no choice. After she left, smirking, I felt something was off. She had excluded me from events before, but now she was adamant about including me. Later, I discussed it with Peter, who revealed that his mother had already arranged for us all to attend together, specifically choosing this restaurant to celebrate as a family. This sudden shift in her behavior left me conflicted. Peter was excited about the dinner. "Don't you feel the same, Samantha?" he asked. But I couldn't share his enthusiasm. "Sorry, but I'm not excited. I'm worried about how much it's going to cost at such an expensive restaurant," I admitted, my unease growing with each passing moment. "I don't want to go. Just tell them I have something urgent and enjoy yourself," I told Peter, feeling a growing sense of unease about the dinner. "Why are you being so negative?" he asked, clearly frustrated. "It's not just us. My brothers and their wives are coming too. It would look bad if you weren't there with the whole family." I could see how excited he was about dining at such a fancy venue for the first time, but I felt trapped. My reluctance was brushed aside, and it seemed like my husband was more aligned with his mother's perspective than mine. Feeling unsupported and desperate, I took a drastic step. I ordered a voice recorder online, suspecting that the harassment from my mother-in-law wouldn't end at this celebration. I planned to discreetly record her behavior, hoping it would finally make Peter understand what I had been enduring. If he continued to dismiss my concerns, I even considered divorce. Oddly, preparing for that possibility brought me a slight sense of relief. As the day of the dinner approached, I felt somber and filled with apprehension. I hardly knew Peter's brothers, having only met them briefly at our wedding, and my interactions with their wives were limited to basic pleasantries. When we arrived at the restaurant, we were escorted to a private room. Inside, my mother-in-law, Peter's brothers, and their wives were already seated. Peter glanced around, perplexed. "Did the waiter get the seating wrong?" he asked, noticing there was no seat for me. "I'll go ask. Everyone please start without me." He stepped out of the room to speak with the staff. As soon as he was gone, my mother-in-law stood up, her expression cold and stern. "There's no seat for you," she said, her tone biting. "Why would I invite a stranger who just married my son to a family celebration?" Her words stung, but before I could respond, she continued. "You have a choice. Prove you really want to be part of this family, or leave and never come back. Decide now." I didn't hesitate. "I'm leaving," I said firmly, rising from the table without a second glance. "I'm leaving," I stated firmly, without a moment's hesitation. My mother-in-law looked startled, as if she had expected me to beg for her acceptance instead. "Listen to me carefully," she continued, undeterred by my response. "If you pay the entire bill for everyone here, I'll acknowledge you as Peter's wife. I understand you must feel frustrated being treated like an outsider. So pay up and become part of the family. I already told you, I'm leaving. Why should I cover the expenses for someone else's family gathering? I retorted, turning to go. She slammed her hand on the table and raised her voice. Can't you see I'm offering you a chance to be part of the family? Are you really okay with remaining a stranger? Pay up. No, I replied calmly. I'm perfectly fine being seen as a stranger. And since I'm not family, I won't be paying for your meal. Goodbye, mother-in-law. With finality, I turned and walked out of the room. She tried to follow, but by the time she reached the doorway, I was already gone, leaving the confrontation and the oppressive dinner behind me. By the time I reached the exit of the restaurant, I was determined to go straight home and send Peter an email explaining the entire ordeal. To my surprise, he arrived home just 15 minutes after I did. He explained that the waiter had confirmed there was no mistake with the reservation. My mother-in-law had deliberately caused the scene. It turned out that my decision to stand up for myself had a ripple effect. The wives of Peter's brothers had witnessed the incident, and their perspective on the family dynamics shifted dramatically. The wives who had silently endured similar mistreatment from my mother-in-law found strength in my actions. Emboldened by my stand, they too decided to leave the restaurant, making a decisive statement of solidarity. Their husbands, the eldest and third sons, quickly followed them out. I braced myself for the inevitable backlash, and sure enough, within 4 hours, my phone began ringing nonstop. It became so incessant that I eventually blocked her number, but one call slipped through from an unknown number. Hello, sorry for calling so late. Is this Samantha's mobile phone? The man on the line introduced himself as a police officer from a nearby station. He explained that after everyone had left the restaurant, my mother-in-law had stayed behind, trying to continue eating. Shockingly, she attempted to charge the bill to me. However, the restaurant staff, already displeased with her earlier behavior, denied her request. They believed I had no intention of returning to settle the bill, especially after leaving upset. Finding herself in a bind, my mother-in-law was advised to pay by card, but she had neither a card nor enough cash to cover the expenses for everyone's meals. Desperate, she tried to reach out to other family members for help, but none responded to her calls. Frustrated and enraged, her anger escalated, and she began breaking expensive vases and flower pots inside the restaurant. The disruption prompted the staff to call the police. When the officers arrived, they managed to calm her somewhat, but she remained defiant, refusing to take responsibility for the chaos she had caused. With the restaurant yet to be compensated, the staff requested the police to escort her home. Feeling the sense of duty, despite having ignored the earlier calls, my husband and I reluctantly returned to the restaurant to address the situation. Upon arrival, we found the police still attempting to pacify my mother-in-law. The moment she saw me, she glared and shouted, "You're useless. This mess happened because you didn't pay the bill. Isn't it only natural to help your mother? Pay up now." Her nearly threatening tone, especially in front of law enforcement, took me aback. The officers had made it clear that if no one took responsibility, they would have to either escort her to a family member's home or arrest her for attempting to leave without paying the bill. Exasperated and determined to end the drama, I responded firmly, "Please take her away. Arrest her or do whatever you need to do, but make her take responsibility." My mother-in-law looked stunned by my assertiveness. "How could you say something so heartless? I can't believe it. Just pay the bill. It's bad luck to have a family member arrested," she pleaded. But my resolve was unshaken. "I don't care. I'm not family, and I don't want to be associated with someone who's acting irrationally and causing a disturbance," I replied. With that, I turned to leave the restaurant, determined to let the police handle the situation. All I wanted was to distance myself from the chaos and ensure my mother-in-law faced the consequences of her actions. Just as I was about to walk out, my husband, who had been silent until now, suddenly spoke up. "I understand what happened was awful for Samantha, but is it really serious enough to warrant an arrest?" he asked, coming to his mother's defense. "You're missing the point," I shot back. "She's in trouble with the police because she tried to leave without paying and caused a scene. It has nothing to do with me. Or are you suggesting I should be responsible for paying for 7 people's meals when I didn't even eat?" My husband fell silent, then walked past me towards the police and the restaurant staff. Anticipating his next move, I called out, "If you're going to pay for her meal and compensate them, we're getting divorced. Think about that." He didn't respond to my ultimatum. Instead, he quietly took out his wallet. Feeling hurt and betrayed, I left the restaurant, walking back home alone. Once home, I began packing my essential belongings, my decision to leave solidifying with every item I placed in my bag. Just before midnight, my husband returned. Mom's not getting arrested, he sighed, clearly exhausted. She was in the wrong, but the restaurant said they'd forgive her if I compensated them and promised she wouldn't come back. I didn't have enough money, so I called my brothers to help. I'm so tired, he went on, recounting the night's events, his frustration growing as he noticed my silence. Finally, he saw the packed bags. What's with these bags? He asked, confusion evident on his face. I'm getting ready to leave, I replied, my voice steady. We're getting divorced. His face fell as the weight of my words hit him, and I knew the rift his actions had caused was too deep to repair. I told you that if you sided with her, we get divorced. You can't say you didn't hear me, I declared, my voice steady and resolute. My husband's face showed pure shock, his eyes wide with astonishment before his expression shifted, and he began raising his voice. What's happening? You've been acting so strange today. I understand that Mom did something terrible, but why does this have to lead to divorce? He exclaimed. I've told you countless times that I'm being mistreated, I countered, frustration seeping into my tone. Even with all the evidence and others backing me up, you still chose your almost arrested mother over me. Isn't it reasonable that I want to divorce someone who behaves like that? I've had enough. He continued to protest, but I barely listened. My mind was already focused on leaving the house and taking the necessary steps for a divorce. The very next morning, I went straight to get the divorce papers. When I handed them over to my husband, he made a dramatic show, lamenting how he didn't want a divorce. However, the moment I mentioned involving a lawyer, his reluctance disappeared, and he signed the papers. I sent them off immediately, marking the official end of our marriage. Finally, I felt a profound sense of freedom, reclaiming my independence. Soon after, my now ex-husband moved out and went to live with his parents. It turned out he had relied heavily on me for household chores, and without me, he struggled to manage on his own. The apartment quickly fell into disarray, and disliking the mess, he ended the lease and returned to his parents' home. A similar fate befell his eldest and third brothers. On the day my husband called them to help with the financial compensation at the restaurant, both encountered conflicts with their wives. Their wives had refused to pay for a debacle caused entirely by their mother-in-law. These tensions exposed deeper issues in their marriages, revealing a pattern of behavior far beyond my situation. However, both brothers chose to dip into their savings to help their mother without consulting their wives. This financial decision sparked heated disputes and strained their marriages, leading to serious talks of divorce. Ultimately, both brothers moved back to their parents' home, joining my ex-husband and mother-in-law. Like their mother, they refused to engage in any housework, preferring to rely on others. The entire family dynamic became the talk of the neighborhood, fueling endless gossip. Neighbors whispered about how the wives had allegedly abandoned their husbands, but in truth, they were simply standing up for themselves against a toxic family environment. In the end, my mother-in-law and her 3 sons, reluctant to grow up and take responsibility, found themselves all living together again, trapped by the very behaviors that had driven their families apart. The 3 brothers, in response, received staunch support from their mother, who blamed all the family strife on their wives. My ex-husband, hearing about this, nodded smugly, convinced that divorcing me had been the right decision. Despite the swirling rumors, my relationship with the neighbors remained strong. They knew all too well about my mother-in-law's difficult personality and kept a respectful distance from her, occasionally sharing quiet laughs about her antics. Over time, my mother-in-law developed a notorious reputation in the neighborhood as a parent who had failed to properly raise her sons. My ex-husbands were labeled as mama's boys, criticized for siding with their mother instead of supporting their wives. Despite their attempts to reach out to me, I took decisive steps to start anew. I changed all my contact details and moved to a new house, ensuring they couldn't find me, securing my peace and beginning a fresh chapter far from the turmoil of the past. Since cutting ties with my mother-in-law and her side of the family, my life has transformed remarkably for the better. The relief of no longer having to deal with the constant stress and drama she caused is immense. Even more, the opportunity to form new friendships has greatly enriched my life. During the turbulent time of my divorce, I found unexpected camaraderie with the ex-wives of my former husband's brothers. Our shared experiences with my mother-in-law brought us together, and we've since grown close. Now, we frequently meet up for meals and enjoy weekend shopping trips. Ironically, I find myself grateful to my ex-husband for one thing, introducing me to these incredible women who have become dear friends. In just 3 days, we're planning to explore a new cafe in town. It's refreshing to engage in activities that bring us joy, free from the toxic relationships of the past. This newfound freedom is incredibly liberating. I'm now living the life I've always wanted, surrounded by friends who uplift and support me. Reflecting on how different my life would have been without these friendships, I realize how much they've filled a void I hadn't even recognized. For that, I am profoundly grateful. I cherish these bonds deeply and hope they last a lifetime, as they have truly changed my perspective on what it means to have supportive, meaningful relationships.